Good evening. So, welcome to the third part of the series of these research lectures in the Medical Education Technology Division from Atal Bihari Vajpayee Institute of Medical Sciences and Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital. Today, our speaker is Dr. Namita. She is an associate professor in the Department of Anesthesia and a keen researcher, and she'll take us through a very important part of our series, which is research metrics and some amount of search on the PubMed. So welcome Dr. Namita and welcome to other panelists, Dr. Achal, who's also an associate professor, and Dr. Himanshu, a keen researcher himself, a senior resident in our department. And all of them will contribute to the discussion. So Dr. Namita, welcome, and you may start with your slides.
Thank you, Dr. Nitin. And now I'll start the lecture. The lecture today is on literature search, part 2. In this lecture, I'll just first briefly tell you about the new PubMed version. And I will also touch upon the selection of how to select a authentic journal. Then following which the main emphasis of the lecture will be on the bibliometrics about author, journal and article metrics. So let's proceed with the new version of the PubMed. Now you can see this is the window of the PubMed of new version. Before getting into it, I would like to suggest you it is always wiser to create an account in the PubMed, because it will help you to revisit and retrieve the data, whatever you will save for the future references. For that, what you have to do, you have to just simply log in. Just click on the login button and you will be directed to a window. So here you can see there are some changes. There is a login update warning that now you cannot log in through the credentials of NCBI. But however, you can log in through the third party accounts. So the question arises why they have made such a change. You can go to the blog post to see why such changes have been done. Actually, NCBI and NLM take our privacy and security very seriously. That is what they claim with this. Our account will become more secure. And since June 1, 2021, it has been came into practice that now NCBI credential can't be used for login. However, in case you already have an account, then there's nothing to worry. Just log in through the username and password or NCBI, and you will see a window of linked account. Click on the change. It will direct you to the third party accounts. And in case you don't have account, you can directly log in through the third party account. And here you can see this is a simple search window. Here you will type anything and you can search. However, you can see one icon of advanced search. I'll tell you how does it work. Once you will click on the advanced search window, it will take you here. You can see the drop down menu. You can refine your search like either a journal, book or mesh words. Anything you want to use, you can use. Enter your search item. These are the Boolean operators as already explained previously. And what you can do, once you will type the search item, you have to just click on the add button and automatically it will come into the query box. After there, then you can click on the search. I'll show you how to proceed. Just enter the search item like I have entered capnography and hypothermia. Once you will enter this, you have to just, here Boolean operator AND is used. Once you will enter the search button, this window will open. Here you can see there are 4 results which shows in combination of the term using capnography and hypothermia. And they are, you can here read that it is written filter applied. It means some filter has been applied like free full text. See, these are the filters. So to further refine your search, you can search a timeline. You can include the text availability, or you can even search according to article type. And further, here there are many provisions. You just click on the save button. Once you will click on the save button, you can save all the searches. You can select to save all the result, or you can select particular result. Even you can email them to yourself or send it to the clipboard. So this in brief, I have just gone through how to revisit the new PubMed, how to create an account, and later on how to refine your search. From this brief discussion, we will move on to the second part of the lecture, that is how to select an authentic journal for publication, which is a very important topic one should know. Because what happened traditionally, we were just having print journals, and since now digitalization has come, so there are so many new publishing modules also over there on the internet, like open access models. And this what has done, it has just brought a revolution in publication. It has its own advantage as well as disadvantage. In advantages, you can see that now the research work and the knowledge, it can be disseminated to larger population and they can be benefited. However, the disadvantage is that now there are pouring of pseudo journals, predatory and deceptive journal. This definitely poses a challenge to the researcher how to choose a correct journal. So International Committee of Medical Journal Expert came to the rescue to help you out with certain points. How can you distinguish between a predatory journal and an authentic journal? Look, a predatory journal, if you will see, they often claim for the peer review, but once you will submit your article, they will never follow this procedure. And they also purposefully use names which are similar to the well-established journal. And you will also see whatever publication or submission you will do, they will accept and publish. First, they will demand the processing fees. Once the fees has been submitted, it will be published. And they don't have any retraction policy. They don't have any target authors. They don't give any recognized guidelines to the authors. So you can also see when you will go through the index of such journal that they include not only biomedical topics, but also non-biomedical topics. And these journals also give you assurance of rapid publication. So just keep these points in the mind and distinguish them from the authentic journal. Once we talk about authentic journal, they have a rigorous peer review. And they also provide you with the recognized guidelines for author, which will be through Consort, Prisma, Strobe, etc. So they will even ask for the clinical trial registration number, and this number has to be obtained before the time of first patient enrollment. And even by your own experience, once you will go through the editorials, you can see the quality of the editorials will tell you the authenticity of the journal, the quality of the journal. And these journals take ethics as a very important point. They will tell you about information about the plagiarism. Even such journals have programs through which you can, technical programs through which you can check your paper and find out how much percentage of plagiarism is there, or maybe there may not be any plagiarism. They also give importance to the conflict of interest. They implied informed consent should be there. Whether you have taken an approval from the internal review board or not, they are bothered about the confidentiality, and definitely they will reject the salami publications. With a emphasis on the ethics about human and animal subject research, which is very important for these authentic journals. Apart from these, for checking the authenticity of the journal, you have to look for three important points: indexing, impact factor, and citation score. I'll just tell you in detail. Before that, I'll just want to say you also look for this journal operation numbers will be given, like digital object identifier number or international standard serial number, which is a 8-digit number. You can identify these numbers on the journal. So look out for indexing. These are the indexing which are authorized and shows that the journal is not a very authentic, and you can definitely submit your articles. It should be indexed in Medline, PubMed Central, Citation Index, Science Citation Index, Expanded Embase, Scopus, or Directory Access of Journal, etc. You also look for the impact factor. This everything we'll talk in detail later on. Look for the journal impact factor, Schemago rank, and eigenfactor. What is the score given to the journal and the citation score? These things will help you to select a journal. I'll also help you out with few uh, uh, authentic sites like we have been through the PubMed. Once you will open the PubMed window, you can see that here it is a word written journal. Just click over this journal and you will be directed to a newer window which will show an LM catalog. So in case like you can just write your subspecialty here. In case I want to search anesthesia journal, I'll just write anesthesia and press the search button. Look, it has directed me to so many journals, 113 journals. This is less number because I have activated a filter also here. If I'll clear the filter, it will show me around 7,000 journal. But I want this much of journal, authentic journal, which will also tell here if you will see whether it is indexed in Medline, whether it is not indexed in Medline. That way you can find out the authentic journal of your particular field through PubMed. And you can even find out through Schemago journal rank. Just type in the search window Schemago journal or schemagojr.com. You will, this window will open. Then click on the journal ranking. It will direct you here. You can type the subject, like in case if I want to search for anesthesia journal, I'll type here anesthesia, and I can type the subspecialty also, like pain medicine. Then whether I want a particular regional journal or all journals, then you can search the year also. Once you will go through it, it will show a huge list of journal according to the ranking, according to the H index of the journal, according to the impact factor and ranking of the journal. This all, these terms I will discuss in detail, so you will be familiar with these terms later on. But with these indexes, multivariate indexes, you will be able to choose a journal and submit your article. Now coming to the most important topic of today's discussion is research impact matrix. Before that, we should know what is bibliometrics. Basically, bibliometrics is nothing except it is a statistical method to analyze the research impact of articles, books, and other publications. As of now, there are numerous quantitative indicators that are currently available for evaluating the research productivity. So there are the evaluation of impact matrix is at 3 levels, like it will be at journal level matrix, at author level matrix, and article level matrix. We'll discuss about all 3 in detail one by one. Starting from the author matrix. Author matrix can be evaluated by seeing the number of publication or counting the number of publication as well as number of citation. And later on, there have been development of quantitative metrics because they are the measurable index of research impact. These metrics, the main most widely used metrics is H index, H5 index, G index, and I10 index. So let's discuss each and everything individually in detail. So this is how the evaluation of measures has occurred. From documents, we have moved on to counting of citation, to H index and new indicators. So what does number of publication tell? It will tell the productivity of a researcher and their institute. However, just counting how much number of publication an author has certain drawbacks, because it will not tell the significance and impact of research or researcher. Actually, what happened, like for example, imagine I have 100 publication, but my co-worker has only 30 publication. Yet the impact which the publication or citation which the co-author, my colleague has received is more. Like the research work which he or she has done is creating more impact to the academic scientific society. So even though I have 100 journals, the impact will be more by the lesser number of publication. And other point is that with experience and age, the number of publication will increase. So young researcher will be at uh, shortfall since their experience and age will be less, and they will have less number of publication. Now moving on to the citation. Basically, what is that? It is a number of times the publication which has been cited by other researcher. So it will tell the quality of the article. So that is why if the quality is good, it will be cited more number of time. However, it also have its own shortcomings, that citation depends upon the type of research article. So those review articles will very well receive more citation than any case report, letter to editor, or even original article. So it depends, if it is a review article, number of citation will automatically increase. And the citation count of researcher with high performing co-authors, even with small number of publication, will be more. Like if the co-author is more established and more experienced, then you will get a benefit and your citation count will keep increasing even if you have small number of publications. The citation count is more for more established and experienced researcher than the young scholar. These are the shortcomings of number of citation. There are several citation tools available. Like from Web of Knowledge, you can see it through the citation map. On the Scopus, there is a citation tracker, and there are Google Scholar citations also. Now moving on to the quantitative metrics. To overcome the shortcomings of just calculation, counting of the number of publication or citations, we have moved on to the measurable index of research impact. This will tell the significance and scientific contribution of the researcher in a more mathematical method. It not only it will tell that, but it will also help in the form of assessment to provide funds, awarding the academic rank and salaries, etc., to the researcher or the scientific dignitaries. So first index which we are going to introduce is H index. It was introduced by Hirsch in 2005. How to define H index? The n number of published paper by the researcher that have been cited at least n number of times. Like this definition can be explained with the help of example, and it will be more clear. First of all, you should understand that H index can be calculated both manually as well as automatically. Here in this slide, we are going to calculate H index manually. Look, for example, one author has published 8 publications. I have just written in a serial number 1 to 8 publication, and the citations what the author has received has been here written in decreasing order. So remembering the definition, you just see these are the number of publication 6, which should have at least n number of citation or more than that citation. So here you can come and see it is 7, which is more than the n number. But when you will move on to here, this shows n number is 7 and the citation is 5. That means the n number of publication, here citation is less than the number of publication. It can't be the H index. The H index here will be 7. The author has H index, H index will be 6. The author has a H index of 6, as author has at least 6 publication, like here 6 publication with at least 6 or more than 6 citation. I hope it is clear. Then H index can also be measured automatically. It can be measured through Google Scholar database or Web of Science database or Scopus database. I'll show you. Like once you will open the Google Scholar window, what you have to do to know your H index, just click on the My Profile icon. Once you will click on the My Profile icon, it will ask you few credentials about yourself, like your name, affiliation, etc. Just fill in the credentials, and then you will be directed to this window. It will automatically retrieve all your publication. And see here, you can see the citation here are 262 and H index is 8. So here you can see there is one more column which shows the since 216 the citation is 141 and H index is 6. So what is the difference between these two things? Here it is showing the overall H index of author, and this is for last 5 years. So there is one more term, H5 index. The Google Scholar now use H5 index for journals, where the calculation are based upon the output from the last 5 years. Like if you have been a good researcher in previous years, but now you are not doing good research work, your H5 index will keep falling. You can see here it was 8, now it has become 6. So it shows that you have been there is some downfall in your research work. So you have to further increase your research work and citations also. So we have learned two terms till now, what is H index and what is H5 index. Similarly, H index can also be calculated automatically from the Scopus preview. Just log in the scopus.com, click on the, after creating your account, click on the author research. You will be directed to the page and fill on the credentials. Automatically, this site will also retrieve all your articles and calculate the H index. Similarly, you can calculate your H index from the Web of Knowledge or Web of Science also. But here the shortcoming of Web of Science is that it needs institutional sign-in. Then only you can retrieve your H index. So after learning so much about H index, we should know the strength and limitation of H index. H index, as we know, it is a objective thing, and it is easily calculative. And it also depicts durable performance and not single achievements. It excludes poorly cited papers, thus does not yield any inaccurately inflated score. Like you saw last slide, as the citation number was decreasing from the n number of publication, so those citations were not at all taken into account, and poorly cited papers are excluded by H index. The limitations are that H index cannot be used to compare scientists across different disciplines. Why? Because there is variation in the research output as well as citation pattern in different disciplines. And it also put the young researcher at a disadvantage, because initial stages you may have less number of publication, less number of citations. So the H index will gradually increase as your research work will increase. And it overlooks the number of co-authors also. Like whether you are first author, you are last author, it doesn't matter. It will give equal credit to all the authors of the paper, and it also doesn't take the accountability how much contribution by an individual author has been done. It does not disregard self-citation. Now, what is self-citation? For example, I write one article and then I write another article. In the second article, I will self-cite my first article. In this way, I can just keep inflating my citation score. So H index has this shortcoming also, that it does not disregard self-citation. Now moving on to the I-10 index, we learned what is H index, what is H5 index, and what is now I-10 index. It is also proposed by Google Scholar in 2004, and it defined that the number of publications with at least 10 citations. You see with example, like here you can see in Google Scholar, there is the I-10 index. It shows the I-10 index is 5. It means that my at least 5 publication have 10 citation. 5 publication have at least 10 citations. So I-10 index will become 5. So now moving on to, after learning 3 indices, we will move on to the 4th indices, that is G index. G index was evolved to overcome the shortcoming of H index. However, even though it has overcome the shortcomings of H index, yet popularity is not gained by G index. Now also H index is most popular index. This G index is a author level matrix which was suggested by Leo Agee in 2006. The G index is unique largest number such that the top G article received together at least G square citation. Here all the words are very important in definition. The unique largest number such that the top G article received together at least G square citation. We'll just unfold this definition with the help of example. For example, if G index is 10, it indicates that the top 10 publication of an author have been cited at least 100 times. Like with summation of all the 10 publication, if we'll see the citation summation, it should be at least 100 times. Furthermore, we can learn from one more example. The similar, we saw it in H index. See, please read it as G and read this one as G square. Author has 12 publications. The citation are written in decreasing order like we wrote in H index. But here two more columns are there. One is summation of citation and G square. So if first publication of the author has 29 citation, the summation will be 29. But if the second publication has received 26 citation, you have to sum up 29 plus 26, that is 55 citation summation will come here for the second publication and so on. And G square is this is G square will be 1, 4, 9 and so on. This is G square. So again, revisit the definition. What does it say? It says that this is the largest unique number which has a citation summation which should be either equal to or greater than G square. This is G square 144 and this is the citation summation number 146 and this is the largest unique number which is corresponding to all the fulfillment. So the G index of this author will be 12 and you can see H index will be 8 because n number of publications should have at least n number or more than n number of citations. So you can see here H index is 8 and G index is 12. What is the difference here? Prominently you can see that the lower citation, the papers which have lower citation are ignored by H index. However, they are taken care by G index. So G index allows highly cited papers to bolster the low cited papers and it will always be greater than the H index. So once we are done with the author matrix, we will move on to the journal matrix. Journal matrix can be evaluated by journal impact factor, Chimago journal rank, Egan factor matrix, which comprises of two score, Egan factor score and article influence score. Journal impact matrix was a term coined by Eugen Garfield in 1955. Initially, it was meant to be used by librarians to evaluate the quality and influence of journals. So we should also know how to calculate a journal impact factor. The journal impact factor can be calculated by one numerator and denominator. The numerator will be the total number of citation in the current year, in the year which you are calculating the impact factor to any article published in the previous 2 years. And the denominator will be the total number of articles published in same 2 years in the same journal. For example, if I want to calculate impact factor of any journal in 2015, I have to look for all the articles which have received citation in 2013. I mean total summation of citation which the journal has received in 2013 and also in 2014, preceding 2 years. And it will be divided by the total number of articles which has been published in the journal in 2013 and 2014. This will give the journal impact factor. The most authentic journal impact factor is evaluated by Thomson Reuters Agency. And you should also know if any journal has impact factor 1, what does it mean? It means that on an average, the article which was published in previous 1 or 2 years have been cited at least one time. It also has its own shortcomings. It can be artificially inflated by publishing more review articles, as we discussed earlier, that they will receive more citation, and publishing lesser case report, letter to editor. The other thing is if the journal itself not accept a paper with low chances of citation. Even if it is a good article with a specific topic, then also the impact factor will be inflated artificially. And other factors, self-citation, as we discussed earlier. What is self-citation? If the person will keep self-citing, the journal impact factor will increase. And there are many times unethical requests by the editors to cite papers from the journal, then only they say your article will be published. These are all things which can artificially inflate the journal impact factor. And other shortcomings are that it can't make comparison across the disciples, because different disciples have different sizes of journal, and they also have different citation behavior. The other thing is time frame. Like we saw that journal impact factor has a time frame of 2 years. But if you will look at medical sciences journal, they get early citation than other disciples like social sciences. So automatically the medical journals will have higher impact factor when compared to social sciences. So these are the shortcomings, some of the shortcomings of journal impact factor. Now coming to another metric, eigenfactor matrix. It comprises of two score, eigenfactor score, which measure the importance of the journal, and article influence score, which measure the prestige of the journal. So though journal impact factor was easy to calculate, this is a very complex calculation, which is calculated by the algorithms of the Web of Science database. The betterment here is that it exclude the self-citation, unlike journal impact factor. Scimago general rank, we already saw one window of Scimago general rank previously, or source normalized impact per paper. It is also a complex calculation which is calculated by the algorithms of Scopus database. What does it do? It ranks the journals as according to their average prestige per article. So these are, in nutshell, we can discuss that impact factor is easy to calculate. However, SNP, SJR and eigenfactor, they have a complex calculation. Impact factor follows short citation window of 2 years. However, SNP and SJR, they follow the medium citation window of 3 years, and eigenfactor follows the long citation window of 5 years. Here in impact factor, self-citations are included, so that in SNP also. In eigenfactor, self-citations are excluded. In SJR, the self-citation are limited. So these are the basic differences in the impact factor and ranking of the journal metrics. Now we move on to the article level metrics. Article level metrics are citation metrics which measure the usage and impact of individual scholarly articles which are published in any journal. The Public Library of Science was the first originator of article level metrics. If you will visit this PLOS.org, you will see the articles have been given their own metrics. So importance of each article is measured at their own level. It also provides a robust set of resources and tools to facilitate the understanding and application of article level metrics. You can visit any one of these PLOS, Biomed Central, AmBio, etc. You can see that they provide article level metrics also. So there is one more upcoming new term, L metrics. L metrics, people get confused that it is an article level metrics. However, it is measured both at journal level as well as article level. It was introduced in 2011. It is basically an online service that allows the tracking of how much exposure an article has had in the media. So from the definition itself, you can conclude that it is not at all a scientific measure to measure the quality of any article. Rather, it will just measure the popularity of the article on the social media in various platforms. You can visit this lmetrics.org for further details. So we have been through the basket of metrics, though it was flexible but quite sophisticated. I hope I had made it clear. And now the session is open for discussion and questions.
Thank you, Dr. Namita. That was very informative, very crisp and very useful. And I really enjoyed the talk. And I think that you have already answered so many questions which came up in our previous sessions regarding these areas. But even then, if we have a few questions, we still have maybe 5 minutes to take up one question from each participant. So I'll start upwards, Dr. Himanshu. Quickly, if you have a question.
No, sir. Actually, ma'am has covered the topic very adequately. The questions I had written before the topic, ma'am has already answered them. So I don't think I have any.
Sorry, you can just let us know the questions, even if ma'am doesn't have to answer, so that the other participants can also identify with your questions.
I made the ranking like what is the article ranking, how we rank the articles, and how to know the number of citation of a particular author. All these things I wanted to know, which have already ma'am has covered.
Okay, great.
Yes.
I'm glad that you concluded from the lecture itself.
Thank you.
Yeah, that shows that it was really useful, frankly. Dr. Amit, please.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're audible. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am, for this very informative lecture. And I had one question. So, baseline, if I have a journal, and how do I know this? Should I send my research to this particular journal or not? What site I should be searching for, or a single site or single index? Should I be focusing on impact factor or any other factors you have already described? Presently, what is the best to see if I should send my research to a particular journal?
First of all, I would like to emphasize that there is no single matrix which will decide which journal is authentic or which journal is good. You have to see multiple level metrics. So as I already said, you can search your journal from which journal you want to send. You can go through PubMed, Schemago, Journal Rank, and there are other sites also like Biosemantics. If you will go through biosemantic.com, you just write your subspecialty in which you want to send, or even the particular topic. They will show you the indexing of the journal. They will show you the ranking of the journal. They will even show you the article level metrics. From there, you can definitely conclude which journal will suit to your original article or research article or review article, whatever you are trying to send. So there are basically two more important sites, Biosemantics and eventsediting.org. These are the two sites you can visit to know which journal, apart from PubMed and Schemago Rank, which I told you.
So I have a simple one. I have a simple suggestion for this. That Dr. Amit, that when you write an article as a upcoming researcher, I think it's a team effort, and the person senior most in the team probably has the experience to select the journal, with all these parameters. So what Dr. Namita has told us today is, about selecting the best journal. This is, how to avoid the predatory and the salami journals and to avoid picking the, so that much we should know. But is this article that I have written, is this suitable for a particular journal? I'm sure that experience helps there, because we should know the standing of our own research, the level of our paper, and the level of the journal. So just because we know that there are the best journals, we don't go chasing after them with every article, because we should know where we stand. That's very important. And in that situation, the experienced person helps. And yes, these parameters which we have learned today are to make us aware on how these journals are ranked. So what I do is, as an example, that I would first see, because I don't like to spend out large amounts of money on publications. It doesn't sit right. And I would first rule out the paid journals. And after that, I would see whether the journal accepts articles of a particular type, of a particular subspecialty. And from there, I would go and pick out the best of those, so it's a staged procedure and experience always helps. So involve every member of the team. The junior people definitely write and they, formulate, the author contributions we talked about in the last, the author contributions are different. So the senior most person has the responsibility of, adequate placement of the research. I'm sure everybody agrees.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
definitely.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for the inputs. Thank you very much.
So Dr. Achal, anything that you would like to add or?
I would just like to appreciate the way Namita has put the things in a very simpler way, crisp and simple, so that the new beginners in the research also they understand the importance of how to select and how to go for research, how to search the articles and journals also. So that is a wonderful job done.
Okay, so just to round it up, there was a question which I think Dr. Himanshu is aware of, that he wanted to know in one of the lectures whether, publications which or abstracts which I present at conferences and so on. So, I had promised
Yes, sir.
so I had promised
Yes,
to find out so if I share my screen right now, I'll just share my screen. And okay, is my screen visible?
Yeah, visible, sir.
Okay, so I'll just so this is a document, Dr. Himanshu, which comes by searching the UGC, University Grants Commission Promotion for Faculty. So this is an example of that document. It is an API document, Academics Performance Indicator for Career Advancement Scheme. So largely this document has been adopted by many universities, and see how it is schemed. The first is general information, background, and so on. Are you able to appreciate the scrolling of the document?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this all information is personal. After that, it asks for academic performance. So here, the number of classes taught, it's really detailed, and they have thought of everything which had come to your mind earlier when you had asked that question. And then it, involvement in university activities, administrative examination activities, evaluation activities, student related co-curricular activities also. And everywhere there is a point system where the points are awarded. So many universities are actually using this verbatim, to grade and to the teacher. And then you come to the research papers and the academic activities. So here you have peer-reviewed papers. They've also classified the grade of the paper, whether it's an international journal, a UGC listed journal, and it's a national publisher, or for a book, it's an international publisher or a chapter, and accordingly those points. Similarly, involvement in other teaching, learning, pedagogy workshops. Coming down, guidance in research, as a PhD supervisor, thesis, research projects, the value of the project. Of course, the higher projects get more points. So coming to lectures abroad, so everything has a points, and then these points are tallied up, and then you have a final score. So that document helps us in knowing. You may not have to use it like this, but it helps you to know whether the particular contribution that you're making, how valuable is it compared to each other. So a presentation at a conference, I think would carry the same marks as a case report or maybe a letter to the editor in that context. So I hope that something came out of that answer.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, so I think we are through. If anyone has to add anything, you're most welcome, because Zoom has given us some time. I think we should not push it too far. And so I'll stop here and thank you all very much. It was really enjoyable, and we'll continue this again. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.